coffee baller and proud owner of Proud Mary, Nolan Hirte. Welcome to the Epic Table Podcast, brother.
Thanks, man. Nice to be here, dude.
Mate, you're here in New York City, usually in Portland, formerly Melbourne.
Yep.
As we speak, you are brewing something special for me.
Couldn't help myself.
I mean, being a coffee specialist, you had to be doing something in the caffeine department for me today, hey?
You know what, man? Like, it's been 20 years I've been making coffee. And my favourite bit is still getting to make someone a cup of coffee and
That's
share
awesome.
it with them, dude.
I mean, that's why, I guess that's why you're successful, right?
Yeah, no, it comes from love for sure. Yeah.
Well, man, we got introduced, it's ironically the word proudly, because of Proud Mary, but we got introduced proudly because of what our two, I guess, ventures have collided for. So you set up a really awesome business in Australia, and then you just, similarly wanted to take it abroad. You've gone to Portland, Oregon, West Coast of the US, and opened up Proud Mary over there, hey?
Yeah, it was a ballsy move and a weird move all at the same time. A lot of people were kind of, what the hell are you doing, was basically what I was hearing a lot. But now, I mean, it's definitely making sense, and I think people understand that we've got something a little different to offer, and it's kind of adding to the already amazing scene in Portland, and has definitely got people excited around the fact that you can do elevated and quality food and drink quality coffee in the same place at the same time, and they go well together.
Well, essentially, what you've done is you've taken what is Melbourne, and you've used your own interpretation with your Epic team and put it in a spot like Portland, which is in its own right, like quite gentrified in a cool way and open to coffee, but doesn't mean it had to be successful. So I love it. I love the fact that in this day and age, coffee culture is becoming a massive thing, and you probably see day to day that is your life. But for somewhere in like Middle America or something like that, it's not as so prolific. But growing up in Australia, that's what our morning routine was.
Well, I mean, coffee's huge here too, and the amount of coffee that's consumed in the US is incredible. It's more so than Australia in terms of how much someone would drink each day personally.
Okay.
But definitely like our interpretation of what a cafe or coffee shop looks like in Australia is different. And I mean, you're seeing that in New York, I guess, with the Australian cafe kind of model blowing up somewhat. We felt like not only were we like pioneering that movement in Melbourne 10 years ago, and seeing it evolve, that didn't really happen elsewhere. It specifically happened in Melbourne and Australia, like in a big way, and it became like kind of like religion to Australia. Going out for breakfast, and not just one day a week, not just on Sundays, like every day of the week.
That's it.
So I mean, it's been great for us to be able to share that culture. And bring that over this way, and kind of like what it looks like in Australia. We kind of decided to keep everything the same, not change it to suit the market. But like, you know what, let's just...
Which is quite ballsy. It's absolutely ballsy, and we can talk about that as well. We talk about the fact that there's more, I guess, notes in coffee there is in wine. But I want to go back to where it all started for you in a way, and how it all started in Melbourne, and then what gave you essentially that courage to kind of jump to the biggest opportunity probably there is at this point, maybe apart from China, but with coffee in general. So take us back. You've started the shop in Melbourne. What was it like?
I mean, funnily enough, I have to kind of say in the story, like part of my inspiration came from a trip to the US. And I saw things happening in the US that weren't happening in Australia.
Awesome.
And that particularly was filter coffee, brewed coffee. Didn't exist in Australia. If you look at Australia's history for coffee, the first espresso machine came to Australia in the 1950s. The Italians brought it over. It wasn't until the 70s that the US saw an espresso machine. Australia, as a result, was 100% espresso. The espresso culture is so strong.
Huge.
And so 2006, 2007, I'm in Western Australia. I won the West Australian Barista Champs. I could see that there was an opportunity to see what was happening in the US. I went to basically all the way up the coast from San Diego up to Vancouver and back over 6 weeks meeting like the best competitive baristas and buying records and drinking coffee for like 6 weeks. And on that trip, someone handed me a menu in LA, 2007. I got handed a coffee menu, and it had Ethiopia with some notes and a price, El Salvador, Costa Rica, whatever. And I'm reading it, and I'm like, man, this is just like a wine list, but it's coffee, and I've never seen this before. Why the hell have I never seen this before? And a light bulb moment kind of went off, and I'm like, you know what? I need to go back to Australia, and I need to share what coffee really is with everyone and pull all the veils off. And it doesn't make sense that they do that in Perth, because Perth is Perth. No matter how well you do, you're kind of still in Perth. Whereas in Melbourne, if you are successful, it's an international city, and you've got scope to go on to the US or UK from there. And we opened Liar Liar before Proud Mary in Hawthorne in Melbourne with Nathan Tolman, who's gone on to do lots of great things. And that was you know what's funny, man, at those times, if you were to go up to any barista in Melbourne, you walked up to them, and which I did often, and I'd be like, hey man, what's in your blend? What are you serving? And they're like, oh, well, can't tell you that. That's a secret, that a special blend that we've been working on for months with our roaster, and it's just for us. And basically code for, I don't know, the roaster's lying to me, and it's the same shit everyone else is drinking. And there was this real like false kind of like layer around.
Would you say it's like tall poppy syndrome related to coffee in a way?
Well, it's just, you know, I mean, it was those days, free umbrellas, free cups, free machines, and shit coffee.
Yeah.
And we wanted to kind of disrupt that and just give people direct link to where it comes from. And I can remember this moment really clearly where an elder lady comes into Liar Liar. She orders a long black, which is Australia's Americano, I guess, a little bit stronger. And she orders a long black. And the way we did things back then was we had a couple different single origins running, and we would just decide what was tasting good and send it out. And so she orders this long black. I run over to the table. I drop the coffee to the table, and I'm like, here's a long black, it's an Ethiopian Yirgacheffe. And she looks at me kind of sideways and says, no, I didn't order that. I ordered a long black. And I'm like, I don't know, okay, this is a long black. And the coffee was grown in Ethiopia from a region called Yirgacheffe. And she looks at me again, and she's like, really? They grow coffee in Ethiopia? And I'm like, yes, they grow coffee in Ethiopia. And it was like, that was the moment, I swear, almost the same week, within the same month, I'm driving down the road in St Kilda, and what used to be just one coffee grinder on someone's bar for the blend, and then just some decaf. That was pretty much standard. Suddenly there's 3 coffee grinders on this bar. And I'm like, hang on a minute, what the hell is going on? And within like a month, Melbourne just turned on to like, let's explore what coffee can be, and single origin, and it really blew up. And we were just lucky enough to be there at the right time, to pioneer and to push and to kind of move that. And as it happened, we also liked doing food and table service and cakes and smoothies and juices. And so it got bundled all into one thing. And I guess we didn't even realize that that was a unique thing. It was just it was our approach to hospitality. Look at how things are now. And Melbourne is fiercely competitive. There's thousands of options. The coffee game is really strong. The food game is really, really strong. Culturally, everyone's there. The melting pot is what makes it so good. That's what makes it hard to compete with. You know, you have the real mamas cooking like the traditional food with the young guys' interpretation of it.
Of course.
We're just excited to be able to share that culture over in the US and kind of like keep it legit. You know?
I love a couple of things from that story. I think it's a great natural, evolution of why you are doing what you're doing, but you're also super passionate. And, in hospitality, most people are taught that the customer is always right. So for you to actually want to educate someone in this moment with this lady was like, actually they do, grow beans and other things in Ethiopia. It was kind of like a moment for you to go, well, you know what? I actually want to tell you how it actually is. But in a way that's, that's a moment for you, education, that impact that you can have from someone not knowing something right through to eventually creating presence in this developing country that actually is amazing in what they do. So I find that exceptional. I also find exceptional that the way that coffee is now, like Australia is a coffee culture. That's like a brand aspect that we have. And notably, like living in New York, I've noticed that. But it's still a critical thing to, see all the success around Melbourne. And then I'm sure it's not an assumption, but you have the confidence to jump to the other side of the world.
Yep.
Have you been to Portland at all? Like,
I mean, on that trip 12 years ago.
Okay. So 12 years apart though.
Things got weird in Portland. And I felt at home. I'm like, that's definitely, I could do that.
I
like that. And funnily enough, Collingwood and Fitzroy, there's a wormhole to Portland. That's the same kind of thing,
It's interesting, man. You're, I'm sure the listeners are picking up on how passionate you are behind life, not just coffee, but life. And that's a really critical step in any successful business or just in relationships in general.
Yeah.
So, a thing that we picked up on when we were, cupping the experience with you here at Charlie Street was you are super passionate about it. And for us, it's it's a critical thing for anyone. But, everyone listening now can hear that you're like, this is something.
It's a fight. I mean, honestly, the coffee industry is typically commodity industry, it's not specialty.
Yeah.
And even the specialty industry is being squeezed pretty hard because it becomes down to price. And the last thing we want to do is get caught up in and held mercy to price. We kind of want to look after where things come from, the quality side of it, and kind of make sure that we're kind of like you, man, with where you source your produce, where it comes from. It doesn't get any better than that. It's not like we can wave a magic wand to make something that was mediocre to begin with turn into something special. There's nothing like just showing terroir and provenance and the care that was taken in the soil and nature. I mean, nature wins at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Mate, that's I'm loving all that. That's a great segue into our next point. Before we do, we're going to take a quick break on that one. But before we go into our break, what was the moment that you essentially said, I'm going to take a crack at the US? Like, did you come home to Shari and we're just
you know what, man, it was real clear. I mean, we went to Portland as a family. We had a holiday there. It was awesome. I kind of could see the gap. I could see the fact that there was no food present. The places that were doing food were busy, lying out the door.
Yeah.
But no coffee.
Gotcha.
Or mediocre coffee.
Gotcha.
The places that were doing coffee really well were quiet, and they had laptops out, and it was like a library. And there was no food. And so, look, we have an opportunity here to kind of
have a crack.
Have a real crack at it. And I went on the plane back to Melbourne. I was kind of like, how could I possibly start all over again, move family, leave my baby behind in Melbourne? I just don't. It's not possible. Got back to Melbourne, and we've now evolved that model so far in terms of sourcing groats from the Macedon Ranges, rolling them into oats every day to make your porridge and a house curd, and all, getting carried away. And I'm behind the till and back in Melbourne, cafe, and I'm like, hey, how was everything? And customers like, yeah, it's okay. And it was just this like, you know what? Screw you guys. you have no idea how good you've got it. And with all this effort goes in, and it just wasn't returning.
Sure.
And for me personally, it was like, I can't go on without just a little bit of like, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
And
appreciation. That was a lot.
So that was for me. I'm like, I got to do this. Okay. And as hard as all that was, within the first week of opening the doors in Proud Mary, I had a customer come up to us, and she's like, hey, can I give you a hug? And I'm like, yeah, and I have this hug, and she's like, thank you so much for moving here and doing this. And it kind of, that made it all worthwhile. Just that like little, thank you. Yeah.
Mate, on that note, I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to let that lead into our first break, mate.
Yeah.
Nolan, we're back. And as I say we're back, we're sipping a beautiful brewed coffee from yourself at Charlie Street.
Yep.
It's Costa Rican, you said it was?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I had enough coffee today.
Right.
I mean, I smashed a good couple of these before 10 a.m.
Yep.
So, what are we working with here? Where's this one from?
So from Costa Rica, I mean, it's a Catura, it's a varietal.
Yep.
The interesting thing about this is the process.
Cool.
Anaerobic fermentation, it's kind of a new thing that we're seeing appear with coffee. It's more on maybe the last 3 years.
Sick.
And particularly Costa Rica is doing like an amazing job. Costa Rica is somewhere that has always had cutting edge processing technique. So these guys in particular are using like a stainless steel wine fermentation tank, and it's basically using wine techniques and applying the science of that to coffee. So coffee has a history of just tradition and following suit and kind of like having a go. There's a lot of room for variables. There's a lot of change in temperature outdoors. Getting control over those variables allows us to get way better results in the cup.
So what you're saying is essentially, coffee's not just coffee anymore. Like there's actually different parameters as to how the coffee gets to, the barista.
Man, just like you've seen with wine, right?
Yeah.
Like we had dinner last night at Frenchette, a little natural wine bar.
Beautiful aroma.
Simple, elegant like wine list.
Yep.
With a big range of flavors.
Yep.
Coffee has the potential to do the same thing where it's nice to be safe and balanced.
Yep.
But there's more.
Well,
and you can get wild and carried away too.
There's more flavour notes though, aren't there?
More chemical compounds in coffee. I mean, wine has around 220 chemical compounds.
Yeah.
Coffee 800 plus, like 1,000.
Wow. So you hear these people in sommeliers, like smell and taste, and they're talking about potential 200, 240.
Yeah.
There's like 4 times that.
Right.
In coffee.
And so coffee doesn't often get the opportunity to show you what it can do. Typically, it's roasted dark, has sugar added to it, milk poured over it, and it's like, there you go. Yeah. And it's like judging cacao from milk chocolate.
Sick.
They're different things, you kind of want to see it in its raw state. And so a simple pour over, black, it doesn't get any better, man.
It's super tasty, man. And the reason why you're here is people can hear, the listeners can hear, as the people in the background. We've got a little little throwdown on tonight here at Charlie Street. Yeah, it's it. Like it's a thing, right?
Right. It's a big thing.
It's a big thing. Yeah. It's like a little competition. So essentially, you're finding the best latte art specialist, right?
Sure. Yep.
And how does it work?
I mean, these guys are literally going to go head to head, pouring coffees, and then 3 judges, and the judges will point to their favourite.
Okay.
So it's kind of it's a fun way to kind of
respect coffee a bit, hey?
Yeah, give someone a shot, Yeah.
Unreal. So man, let's geek out a bit more about coffee. Like I am big on the health of the soil when it comes to food.
Sure.
And obviously, what the beauty of say Costa Rican coffee versus Ethiopian or whatever is that have their own flavour profiles. So how is it a parameter? Like how the parameters are different? Whether you just stand
everywhere has different challenges, right? Like comparing Ethiopia to Costa Rica is tough because Ethiopia is
super dry, right?
Oh, and also poor as a country. I mean, I just got back from Burundi in Africa. The average wage that a family earns in Burundi, $320 a year.
Shit.
The minimum wage is 9 cents a day. So it's very hard for somewhere like that to have access to equipment, tools, even traceability gets a problem. But to geek out, Costa Rica, definitely those guys like to geek out. The soil, I mean, what you want to get down to is microbiology.
Absolutely.
And the health of the microbiology of the soil.
Here we go.
It basically, I mean, to give you an example, a good friend of mine in Guatemala, super smart dude, he geeks out on this stuff, developed a compost that is vegetable based and has all the right components, the right leaves, the right sticks, the right kind of matter.
Like the right composition, you're saying?
Right composition of material to breed like bacteria and microbiology and create life. And mixing those components together and a little bit of water and stirring, it starts to get hot very quickly.
Like specific for what, coffee beans or anything?
For anything.
Yeah, wow.
And so he has this super compost that is full and teeming of life.
Yep.
And when once he's made it, he has a potion. That potion feeds the soil. The funny thing about it is that everything grows larger. The weeds grow bigger. Everything that's around that soil and gets that life becomes bigger and stronger and healthier.
Awesome.
The coffee only takes what it needs. It doesn't just get crazy. It takes the nutrients it needs, and that's it. He has a farm that has a third of the trees per hectare to the national average. So he's got way less coffee per hectare.
Then you need, yeah.
Producing 3 times the national average.
So, before what?
Doesn't make sense.
900%.
It's like, he's like kind of like producing way more volume with less coffee. Has no sprays, no diseases. Has no chemicals. It's like harmony in nature. And when you look at it, and I tried to understand how the hell is this guy doing this? It's the microbiology. It's the health of the plants. And what happens is if you have the right microbiology and the right health, the seed itself, the coffee itself, becomes heavier. And so instead of just producing more coffee, it's heavier coffee. So it's got more weight. And it's all based on weight. It's denser.
This is so interesting because essentially you compare that to natural life and humans and having a good quality nutrient density, good quality soil.
I mean, when I compare it, I think like, you know what, you've got a cold or a flu.
Yeah.
You eat McDonald's for dinner.
Yeah.
You haven't been for a run in like ever. You sit on the couch, you watch TV, you don't get enough sleep, and you're stressed. Flu goes around, guess what? You're going to get sick.
Absolutely.
You run every day, you get good sleep, you meditate to deal with the stress in your life. You're probably not going to need other things to supplement to make you fight off that cold. Your immune system can kick it. It's no different to coffee, it's no different to the trees. Rust, the biggest epidemic of coffee, can be solved through health, not through sprays and things to kind of like mask the problem, you know?
So we're technically in the same industry.
Yep.
We're both in the industry of providing quality of health somehow.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And so what's for you, like the exciting part? You go out and check out the locations and the farms.
Yeah.
And what are you seeing now that has, maybe 5 years ago wasn't as apparent and it's affecting the flavour and maybe the price and all these kind of things?
This excites me, man, like anaerobic fermentation, taking more control over the process, understanding better what is
anaerobic fermentation?
Oxygen-free environment.
Okay.
Yeah. And instead of like, so same guy in Guatemala, instead of fermenting the coffee in tanks outdoors under a tin roof, where you don't know what the temperature's going to do outside, it's changing constantly. So how do you set your watch to that? Whereas he's got a big warehouse, he's pumping a bit of hot water into the warehouse to maintain stable temperature. And once you've got control of the temperature, then all of a sudden you can set a recipe, especially when it comes down to fermentation. So
you're creating the ideal optimized climatic conditions to provide the best form of a flavor and nutrients.
To allow that microbial matter to actually live and breed and kind of develop.
And that's all from anaerobic fermentation.
Right, and I mean, there's different versions of that, but it's getting control of that environment that makes all the difference.
Yeah,
and
wow.
It's funny that we assume that it needs to be all done by hand to get the best results.
Yep.
Machinery, technology, those things are actually going to help us get control over what we do and get better results. And I like the fact that we are learning more about that. That is something that hopefully we can pass on to people that don't have access to cutting edge technology, and finding lo-fi solutions to giving them a better product. Our producer that we've worked with for 8 years in Honduras came 13th place in Cup of Excellence last year.
And just for those who don't know, what is the Cup of Excellence?
An incredible competition that gives all producers free access to compete. And they will maybe start with like 300 to 1,000 entries, depending on the country.
Sure.
Whittle that down to a top 60 with a national jury. They'll call on an international jury that'll come from all over the world to give their assessment on those 60 coffees and whittle that down to a top 30. That top 30 is like winning the lottery for the producer. Those 30 coffees go to auction. People will pay crazy prices just to win one of those lots.
Yep.
Korea, Japan, man, they have a market for expensive coffee, so they'll outbid kind of anyone. And you might see a coffee that would normally go for $3 a pound go for $130 a pound.
What would it cost for the consumer at that rate?
Yeah, $130 a pound. We would be selling it north of like $20 a cup.
I love that.
Yeah, and it has. I mean,
no, it's great.
Coffee should go there.
Yeah.
Why should it be $3 for the rest of our life?
Sure.
Why shouldn't we celebrate what it can be?
Yeah.
Why not treat yourself to something special? Why is it only wine and cigars and bread and like those are things that have a higher price tag?
So that's your perception. You're looking at coffee in that route now.
Why not?
Yeah, cool.
Totally. I mean,
Love
for
it.
me, if you look at, you can get a loaf of bread, white bread for $2 from a mass-produced bakery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bread, but it's not the same as ancient grain, fire-baked sourdough.
It's been 100 years old in its
Right.
own kettle.
And then you know what? The grain that you get, that's not going to make you sick. You're not going to get celiac disease from that bread, but from the other one, where we spray chemicals all over the wheat that insects don't want to eat. Why are we eating it?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm all about rewarding flavour, to be honest. Like you're talking about and then ultimately that's links with nutrients. Because like flavour and nutrients are actually scientifically related.
And
exactly.
Chemical compounds that are there and aromatic, and if everything's intact, you should get big aromatics and flavour. And
is that something you fought initially in Portland? Like, because you generally are a high price point for your average coffee, particularly in America.
Sure.
Like you can go to Dunkin' Donuts, which is what now the biggest importer of coffee in America, is it?
Possibly.
Yeah, so I've been told. Judge's ruling by head of coffee of Charlie Street, Aaron Cook. But yeah, like you can now do that for a really cheap price, or you can go to like someone like Charlie Street or even you guys.
I guess the way I see it is we're trying to create an experience.
Yeah.
So we're not just like, hey, here's your fix.
Yeah.
We're like, no.
Let me talk us through the
taking
process.
care of someone, making them feel welcome.
Yeah.
The food.
Aspect of it all.
The whole thing, man.
You got an experience, and that's the thing. Like watching you guys do your thing is so exciting because you actually add an element of education, and I think that's really cool. So it's you're having a cup of coffee, but you remember the cup of coffee and the place you had
it's
it at.
It's important, dude.
It's
I mean,
huge.
I don't think anyone realises that coffee's in the biggest crisis it's ever been in right now.
How so?
The price of coffee is the lowest it's been like in a long time.
From
farmers are literally pulling coffee out of the ground because they're not making their money. It's literally the cost of production is more than what they're earning in most cases, unless it's specialty and we're paying good prices for specialty.
So when we hear all these trade agreements and things like that with trade farms and things like that, like is it complete BS or what?
Man, so the commodity price is fluctuating around $1 to $1.20 per pound.
Yep.
It's not enough these days. I mean,
what do we need to change? Like what needs to happen?
You know what needs to change is, as consumers, we need to be more aware of where we spend our money.
Yep.
We need to stop worrying about 50 cents and pay $4, $5 for a cup of coffee and stop like expecting it to be $3 forever.
Would you guys all agree with that? You pay like $4 or $5 a cup of coffee as opposed to, what was it?
$3.
Fitzy? Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? As he holds a beer in his hand. Well, mate, we'll head to a break. Love that. And we'll come back with some quick fire questions.
Sweet.
So, Nolan, we hit the break. As we did, we're talking about the passion of what you really, truly stand for. And I love that because, right now, coffee is in its crisis.
Yeah.
Coffee, you can unfortunately purchase it at a very cheap rate, which is affecting the people who are actually creating that.
Yeah, sure.
Talk to us a bit further about that.
I mean, you know what? It kind of like ties into, you asked me before how I got started and where did it all start. And I kind of explained it somewhat, but and ultimately I fell in love with making coffee for the consumer.
Yep.
And then 9 years down the road, I finally got to go to Origin. I went to Bali, I went to Sumatra, and I had my eyes opened, and it upset me. It kind of made me angry and disgusted at like how freaking good we've got it and how hard it is on the other end of coffee, and we just that disconnect. And so like there was 12 of us in Sumatra picking coffee cherries for 4 hours in the beating down sun, Lake Tacagnon. We picked 12 kilos of cherry between the 12 of us over 4 hours.
12 kilos of cherry.
Which, by the time you dry that down, ended up to be like 2 kilos of green coffee.
That's awesome.
And then by the time you roast it, 1.5 kilos. One girl on her own picks 70 kilos a day and gets $1 for it.
Put that in perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that was like, that for me was enough to be like, what the hell? I went back to Melbourne at the same time and someone complained about the coffee being $3.20 to me, and I couldn't help it, just like rip the head off it and like, hey, sorry, but no.
You don't get it.
Yeah, and so I think our job is to change perspective.
Sure.
We definitely don't need everyone to spend crazy money on coffee, but we definitely need to see coffee in a different set of light, a different set of eyes, where it can be something special.
Yeah, it's not just a morning energy hit, is
Right,
it? It's actually a flavour profile that actually has there's a reason why it costs so much, or is that price, because respectfully, there's so much artisanal care that went into it to get to where it is today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, the same thing in food. There's a reason why food costs to the extent they are, because we source the best for you.
Yep.
It's come from soil that is truly cared for, and ultimately, that's what you're here as a messenger to do. Is you realise there was a gap where not only is there a gap in the market, but there's a gap in education. What truly is coffee.
Yep. And this is grown in the third world. It's not. It's not like wine. Wine is definitely much more luxurious environment.
Sure.
Burundi was hard to see, man. That was definitely
that massive IPA.
That was hard to swallow. Yeah, I mean, people are literally hungry. They're starving. That is definitely like one of the poorer countries, and that's a harder one for us to solve.
So do you go there and see that and go, I want to find a way that I can source more beans from here, or do you go?
Totally, but unfortunately, with how corrupt things are, me spending more money and buying more coffee doesn't necessarily get to who
those are meant to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm kind of thinking maybe we can help more with awareness.
Okay. Creating okay.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. That's the truly hard part.
But it's fun, man. I mean, we're so blessed to work in an industry where we have a product that we hold in our hands, that we get to sip on and enjoy.
Yeah, of course.
And we get to have direct impact on producers.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's awesome.
I love talking. I love when people come in here and see our coffee menu and go, what is this? And talk them through what's a hot coffee, what's a cold coffee, and the difference between Angel Wings versus Colombia or Humbler, which is your blend of chocolate espresso that I have every single day.
Yeah.
But for me, that's what I'm excited by. Is coffee is no longer I get a cup of coffee. It's this is like your chocolate espresso that if you are into those kind of notes, it's a beautiful blend on its own. Or if you're looking for stone fruits, try our hot brew that as it cools, it gets more stone fruit.
For sure. We want to help people explore what coffee can be.
Which is what you guys have done. Which is absolutely what you guys have done. I proudly say we have Proud Mary here.
Yeah.
And whether you know them or not, they find out and they're like, okay, now they know who Proud Mary is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mate, let's go into some quick fire round as we get more guests arriving. Mate, I talk about this all the time from a business and entrepreneurial perspective. What is success to you?
You know what? Being an influence.
Yeah, cool.
Changing a game.
Nice.
Changing perspective.
Love that.
Inspiring people.
Sure.
That is success to me, man. To be able to come to the US and have an influence on the industry, that's
huge.
gold to me, man.
That's
and
massive.
I want to, I guess that moment in Sumatra,
Yep.
I had a light bulb moment then.
Yep.
It was I need to change the game.
Absolutely.
I need to become famous. I need to be
do whatever
successful.
it takes. It needs to do its thing.
I need to lead the industry in a positive direction, like a guiding light of example.
Yeah, essentially, as a figurehead, you don't stand for you stand for what you believe in. And that's what a figurehead does. That's great, man.
Yeah.
So I talk about controlling the controllable every single day. So I do something that, if I put myself in a position where it's uncontrollable, I can't do anything about it. That's fine, I'll let it do. But if I'm needing food and I haven't researched where I'm going to find something I like, or if I'm jumping on a plane and I know I'm not going to like the plane food, I'd make the food beforehand.
Sure.
Making sure I take my runners when I travel. What do you do every day that controls the controllable? He brings his kit.
I've got my kit, dude.
He brings his coffee kit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to leave home without all my little bits.
Mate, that's awesome. You got your handheld coffee grinder, your weight to make sure it's brewed right into the same scale, and obviously your own coffee beans.
Brush.
Mate, that is controlling the controllable right there.
Yeah.
All right, mate. What is Nolan's? This is going to be a good one. What is your morning routine?
My morning routine.
Yeah. Do you have one?
Yeah.
Is a 6:05 coffee?
You know what? I don't start with coffee. I definitely like to get food in the belly first.
Okay.
I start with tea.
Yeah, sick.
Incredible tea.
Awesome. What time is this at?
Like 6 a.m.
Yeah, sweet. Nice. Get up.
Yeah.
Get a few push-ups in.
And I've got the kids now too. I do a bit of Tai Chi,
Tai Chi,
yoga.
nice, mate.
Yeah,
How good.
Yeah.
So tea and that, and then what? You get to Proud Mary and grab a feed and coffee. Is that how it works?
Yep.
Nice,
And do a cupping usually first thing once I get in.
You do a cupping first day?
Do a tasting. So
Every
often
single
I would, before I eat, maybe have a banana, but before I eat a serious meal, I do a tasting.
Yeah, cool.
And taste all the roasts from the day before.
Make sure it's all on point.
Your palate is super sensitive when you're hungry.
Yep, absolutely.
It's very heightened.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. That's a good point to take away.
Yeah.
Mate, we're really excited for what you got going on. I can't tell you how excited we were when we first started working with Proud Mary at Charlie Street, and how proud we continue every single day, bro. And
likewise, man.
It's just passion, man.
No, we're stoked, and I guess like for us, we want to be a part of the story with you guys, man, and like grow the thing together, eh?
That's it, man. So you're now looking at other spots throughout the US?
Austin, Texas is on the radar for us.
Absolutely.
We love the idea of doing what we do there. There's definitely an audience for it.
Yep.
Cool town. Spreading the love, man.
It's got a lot of good beards there, which is what you've got as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Mate, we're gonna wrap it up. We've got a beautiful crowd with us, but mate, I'm ready for another coffee.
I'll brew you one, dude.
I love your
awesome,
work,
man.
and mate, thank you for everything. Everyone, check out Proud Mary all across socials, and if you're ever in Portland, make sure you go to Proud Mary, say hello to Nolan and the team, and Chef Barney. Shout out to Chef Barney as well. Mate, thanks again.
Thanks, brother.